What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Draft Hub. And today we are going to be starting my new series. I guess everything is going to be new on this channel. I'm still so used to uploading on my old channel from the past couple of years that I keep thinking to myself, yeah, I've definitely done this before, but not on this channel. So you definitely might be new to my voice, to my series, stuff like that. So we are starting a new series here. We're going to be doing a NFL Draft Hub pick'em for the entire year. So we're going to be predicting every game of every week for the NFL season. I'm also going to be doing this for college football. I have a ton of things coming out this year, really over the next couple of weeks that I'm really excited about. We're going to be doing NFL Draft Gem shorts of smaller school prospects that you guys might not know about. For the 2026 NFL Draft, we're going to be doing NFL Draft prospect profiles. So, of course, your bigger guys like Sawyer Robertson, Caleb Downs, Ruben Bain Jr., guys like that, just going more into depth or more detailed analysis. But we're going to start this one right before the season starts. So get excited about it. I am recording this on a Saturday night, so you will be seeing this on Sunday. And we are going to be talking about week one of the NFL season. Now, of course, as you see right here, we have our win-loss record. We are going to be keeping track of that throughout the duration of the entire NFL season. I will say last year, unfortunately, I don't think there's any more video evidence of it, but I did this last year on my old channel, and I believe I was like 106 games. You know what? I don't think it was that much, actually. I actually could go back in my Sleeper app right now and potentially see what it used to be. I don't know if I can go back in time and see that. No, I don't think I can. I think I got rid of that pool and I'm doing a new one with my friends this year. But I did win that pool and I had quite a substantial record. So I'm not going to say 100 games over 500, but I was pretty damn close if I wasn't. But regardless, we're going to be keeping track and we're going to be going pick by pick, game by game, week by week. Now we're going to scroll down. Now I already did all 16 of my picks for this week, so you're already going to see what pick I did make. I didn't think ahead, but for next week and the weeks past week number 2, we are just going to do them together on recording. So we are going to get into the first game of the NFL season here, which is the Thursday night football game between the defending champ Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, really, I feel like every year for the most part, they're kind of sort of in the headlines, but very recently they were in the headlines. They traded 2 first-round picks. They traded for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark, and they gave up Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons, in turn, signed a massive contract extension with the Green Bay Packers. Kind of a crazy deal if you think so, because the Green Bay Packers are a team that I don't feel like make big flashy moves like that, or if they do, it's occasionally. It's not really all the time. So that was a massive move that I didn't really see coming from the Green Bay Packers, but it's definitely a game changer. It's a game changer on multiple levels, really, because you have the Dallas Cowboys here who I guess are building towards the future. And, I will say a lot of people, before we get into the actual game itself, I do think the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones maybe on this deal got a little bit too much flack. I feel like the relationship between Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and Micah Parsons was just so frayed and so broken beyond repair. Now, what do you want them to do? Micah Parsons, at that point, he said it was more than money. So they probably offered him a very substantial amount of money, and he just didn't want to play in Dallas anymore. You have to capitalize on the assets that you have. If he doesn't want to play in Dallas anymore, he makes it clear to you that regardless of the amount of money that you are going to offer him, he is not going to sign there. You must trade him, and he is one of the most valuable trade commodities in the NFL. He's at a premium position. He's still at a very young age. He's a premier pass rusher, probably one of the top 3, top 2, maybe even the best in the entire game of football. So yeah, I would capitalize on it. 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark is whatever. I mean, he definitely does help the interior of the defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys, which has been a little bit of a problem, especially after drafting Mozzie Smith, and he hasn't really panned out. But it definitely helps him in the short term. Kenny Clark, a former Pro Bowler, isn't his best days are behind him, but he's still a valuable piece. And then you get the 2 first-round picks. So I'll be honest with you, I don't think it was a bad trade. I think the optics of it look bad, but in reality, if we don't know what went on in those meetings, we don't know exactly what happened. So maybe the relationship was broken beyond the point that it was reparable, and you have to capitalize on it. So that's just my little tangent on the Micah Parsons trade. But yeah, you have the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys here. Yeah, to be honest with you, this Philadelphia Eagles offense, I think, is just going to keep rolling. I think they're going to be even more run centric this year than years previously. Relatively the same offense they're bringing back for the most part. Saquon Barkley over 2,000 yards rushing last year. He's on the Madden cover, so I don't really know if that's going to. Hopefully, the Madden curse doesn't hit him. But this offense just seems unstoppable. It is so catered to Jalen Hurts' strengths. The defense is still kind of piecemealed together, especially the secondary for the Dallas Cowboys. So I just think that the offense for the Philadelphia Eagles is just going to completely overpower this Dallas Cowboys defense, being at the Lincoln Financial Field as well. I don't think it bodes well for the Dallas Cowboys. Those Philadelphia Eagles fans are going to be loud. They're going to be rowdy. They're going to be excited to kick off potentially a defense of the Super Bowl champion from last year. So I do have the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Dallas Cowboys. I do think, it's tough because the Cowboys don't really have a solidified running game. They're going with Javonte Williams as the top dog. Then you have Miles Sanders and Jadon Blue behind him. I think Blue is going to be a very exciting player as the season goes on. But for right now, you have two I shouldn't even say older, but just like injury prone, older running backs on the front too. So it's just going to be a dominant passing game. And granted, the passing offense I think is going to be really good this year. You get a healthy year of Jake Ferguson, hopefully George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb is a top 3 receiver in football, in my opinion, as well. You're going to be really good. I just think that with the lack of the run game and how strong the Philadelphia Eagles secondary is, I just think it's going to be a bad matchup for the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. So we're going to move on to the next game here, which is the Friday game, and I believe that this is in Rio de Janeiro. I could be wrong about that. I think this is the Brazil game. It is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I did have in my record predictions for the 2025-26 season, I had the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers tied for second in the division at 11. I think it was 11-6. I want to say, or 10-7. The Chiefs are going through a little bit of a tumultuous time, especially on offense. I don't think the offensive line is 100% solidified at this point. I think it is better ish than what they had last year, but the offense, Rashee Rice is suspended for the first 6 games of the year. Isaiah Pacheco and co in the backfield just don't really provide a how should I put this? I don't think they provide enough of a rushing attack that the Kansas City Chiefs need. You get another year older version of Travis Kelce. Don't get me wrong, when this offense is healthy and solidified, when you have a Hollywood Brown, a Rashee Rice, I think Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, it's pretty lethal. There's a lot of speed on the field. There's a lot of experience, a lot of good route runners. But right now, the absence of Rashee Rice, we don't know how Hollywood Brown is going to play returning from, I think, what did he play? 1 game last year. So that's going to be your other speed demon on the side of Xavier Worthy. I think it is going to be a huge breakout year for Xavier Worthy. I think we're talking about like 1,400 plus receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. I think he's really going to break out in a big way and unlock that downfield Kansas City Chiefs passing offense that we really haven't seen since Tyreek Hill left. But on the Chargers side, there's a lot to like. Rookie running back Omarion Hampton. You have Najee Harris. They brought in as well the running game. I feel like last year it was like we didn't know exactly what we were going to get, even though we knew that the Chargers were going to run the football a lot with Jim Harbaugh at the helm. And they got really good production out of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards for considering that was their top 2. And then you had Kamani Vidal behind them as well. Now you go into the season with Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton. I think the running game is going to be really, really strong. You have Ladd McConkey, who broke out in a huge way in his rookie year. You have Trey Harris. You have Quentin Johnston. You have Keenan Allen back, who's probably going to have a really, really good year with Justin Herbert. the more I talk about this, the more I'm kind of talking myself out of picking the Kansas City Chiefs on this one. I think I'm going to go with the Chargers, actually. I do feel like it kind of matches up a little bit better for the Chargers. They always play a competitive, these two, besides for being division rivals, always play competitive games against each other. So it's always like very, very close. I do think the Chargers edge them out on this one in week one. You know, the Chiefs were a toe tap away from losing in week one of the NFL season last year against the Baltimore Ravens. So anything is possible. And the Chiefs aren't really that great in the first week of the season. I feel like the last couple of years they did lose to the Detroit Lions a couple of years ago as well on the first game of the year. Anything's possible. I'm going to go with the Chargers. I'm going to change my vote. Then we move on to the third game here on the slate. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this could be a very, very potent game. You have what's supposed to be one of the most potent offenses in the NFL in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield is poised for a MVP type of season. Mike Evans is probably a lock to get 1,000 yards again. You have Emeka Ibuka, who's basically going to be taking over for Chris Godwin at the beginning of the year. You also have second-year standout Jalen McMillan, Cade Otton. You have Bucky Irving, Rashad White. This is going to be a really, really strong offense. Tristan Wirfs is back and fully healthy. This offensive line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is really, really good. On the flip side, for the Atlanta Falcons, I like what I saw from Michael Penix Jr. last year. Drake London very, very quietly had 1,300 yards and almost 10 touchdowns last year and over 100 catches. He broke out in a big way. He is, I would consider him a top 10 or even a fringe top 10 receiver in football at this point. Is Kyle Pitts ever going to break out? Bijan Robinson is poised for a massive year. Darnell Mooney is a really, really exciting number 2 option as well. I think this is going to be a really, really competitive game. But at the end of the day, I think the pass rush of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to pose huge problems for the Atlanta Falcons in week one. You know, you have Yaya Diaby, you have Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea. You know, it's chock full of pass rushers on that side of the ball. And the Atlanta Falcons just lost because Michael Penix Jr. is a lefty. They just lost their blindside blocker for the entire year in Caleb McGarry, who's one of the better right tackles in football. So I think it's going to pose a huge problem for the Atlanta Falcons. So I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week one. Moving on to our next game here, you have the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. And I will say the Cincinnati Bengals in week one is a very, very dangerous team to pick because I feel like they always play, especially Joe Burrow, always plays really bad in week one. I don't know if there is a stat out there, but I would go as far as to say that I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow has lost every week one game of his career up until this point. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly seems like it, especially after last year. I think they lost to the Patriots in week one last year. Yeah, so, but they are playing at Cleveland, and Cleveland really has just a lot going on. Joe Flacco is going to start. The offensive line is good-ish. Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford are going to take over. Quishon Judkins at this point is still unsigned. The receiving core, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman are 2 fine options. You have David Njoku as well. I just feel like this Cleveland Browns team is really all over the place. I feel like on the defensive side, especially the defensive line, hopefully with the addition of Mason Graham, could really provide a punch as a pass rusher on the interior of the defensive line. They gave Myles Garrett every penny that they had. Denzel Ward is another year older, even though I still think he is a top 10 corner. This team is just kind of filled with uncertainties, I feel like. Carson Swessinger, I think, is going to be a really nice player for the Browns, though, so I'm super excited to see how the number 33 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft fares out. But the Bengals are at firing on all cylinders right now. You know, they are going into the season fully healthy. Everyone is under contract. Everyone is relatively happy. I think that they're going to be great out of the gate. I think this is finally the year that if Joe Burrow hasn't won a game one, this is going to be the year where he does. And I think that this is going to be I'm not going to say a huge blowout, but this has the potential to be the biggest blowout of the week. Moving on here, you have the Miami Dolphins taking on the Indianapolis Colts. I have a lot of road teams here. As I realized, I feel like every team that I've picked so far has been the road team to win. But this is a curious case because these are two teams that I feel like are just going to really underachieve this year. I think it's funny. If you take a look, I don't go by line or money line or anything, but you have the Colts here at minus 125, the favorite, and the Dolphins at plus 105 is a slight underdog. 79% have picked the slight underdog away from home against the Indianapolis Colts. But be that as it may, I do think this Miami Dolphins offense, despite going through like some crazy times this year, I still think it's going to be relatively loaded. I mean, besides for that really weird trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers where they gave up Jonnu Smith and all that kind of good stuff, they got Minkah Fitzpatrick back, which is cool. Darren Waller came back from the dead. You still have Tyreek Hill. You still have Jalen Waddle. You still have Devon Achane, who I don't know if is going to play week 1, but I think Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright are going to fill in very, very nicely if he does miss a week of action. I really don't think that the Indianapolis Colts have the pass rush to even really disrupt the Dolphins' questionable offensive line all that much, to be quite honest with you. I mean, what are we looking at here? You have JT Tuimoloau, you have Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart. Okay, like it's not the interior is pretty tough, but the pass rush, Kwity Paye hasn't really developed into the player that I think Indianapolis thought he was going to be. JT Tuimoloau is hopefully going to be on his day. He's a really, really good pass rusher, so maybe it'll be his day. But to be honest with you, this Colts offense is really weird. I think that Tyler Warren is going to be awesome. Michael Pittman needs to bounce back from a pretty putrid year last year. Josh Downs is a really, really good weapon. Alec Pierce is wishy-washy. I think this offense is just kind of all over the place. Then you have Jonathan Taylor, who could take over a game at any given moment. But I just feel like the Dolphins, even though their defense isn't really that great, their secondary is decimated. I can't get behind Daniel Jones beating the Miami Dolphins in week 1. I just cannot get behind it. So I am picking the Dolphins. Then you have the New England Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a closer one than I thought. Finally, I have a home team winning here with the Patriots. No, that's not true. I have 2 home teams winning, the Eagles and now the Patriots. I have the Patriots over the Raiders. I like what the Raiders are building in Vegas. I do. I like having Geno Smith there. I think, Jacoby Myers requesting a trade. I still think he's going to play. I think he'll be fine. You have Jacoby Myers, you have Jack Bech, you have Dante Thornton Jr. as basically your top 3 wide receivers. Then you have, of course, Brock Bowers, who had like the greatest tight end season in history for a rookie. You have Ashton Ginty. You have a decent backfield there. You have Sincere McCormick as well. Like they're pretty loaded at the running back position. The offensive line is okay. Defensively is where you get me. The front, the defensive line is good. Is really good. It's the secondary. Really, the second and third level of the defense for me just still isn't there for the Raiders. I think the Patriots are going to be a lot better than people give them credit for. Drake May, I feel like, is going to bust out in a huge way. And don't forget, Mike Vrabel is leading the charge for this team. They have Stephon Diggs now as well. They have Travion Henderson, who I think is going to be a ultimate weapon at the NFL level. I cannot express to you guys how good I think he's going to be. The offensive line, while not fully complete, is still much better than it was last year. I think the New England Patriots are going to be much, much better than people give them credit for. So I am going with the Patriots here against the Raiders. Moving on, you have the Arizona Cardinals and the New Orleans Saints. This could be one of those weird hiccup games where like everyone's like, yeah, it's totally going to be the Cardinals. And then the Saints do that weird thing where some bad teams do, and they come out in week 1 and they just like didn't the Saints do this last year? They like unloaded like 75 or 80 points in the first 2 games of the year and then just like fell off and died. I think they did that. I know they hung like 50 points on the Cowboys or something like that in week 2. It was something like that if I'm remembering correctly, but the Arizona Cardinals, it's really do or die for Jonathan Gannon. I mean, like he's run into some rough periods where key players have gotten injured. They've gotten better every year under him, but now it's time to make the playoffs. And I think this Cardinals team over the last 2 years has completely revamped their defense mainly through the draft. I think having Max Melton, having Will Johnson as your primary corners, I think it's just so promising for the future. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be more centered in this offense. Really, the passing offense kind of worries me a little bit because behind Marvin Harrison Jr., behind Trey McBride, there's really not great options for Kyler Murray to throw to. I believe like Zay Jones is their wide receiver too. Yeah, not terrific, but you have James Conner, who very, very quietly has put in a really nice career in Arizona. Then you also have Trey Benson, who is a sleeper as the running back too. The offensive line has gotten better. The defensive line is shaping up to be pretty dang good as well. I think this team is going to surprise. They're going to be like a 7th seed in the playoffs for me. I do think that they kind of sneak in, and I do think the Cardinals don't fall victim of the Saints last year, and I do think they walk out of New Orleans with a victory. Moving on, I guess this is my biggest upset pick of the week. It is my New York Jets, and you could call me a homer. You can call me whatever you want. There's just a feeling I have. Let me preface this pick by saying, do I think the Jets are going to be good this year? No, I do not think the Jets are going to be good. I think I have watched training camp. I have watched every interview with every beat writer, with every player. The offense looks terrible. Every practice, for the most part, the offense has been terrible. I think the Jets, to be quite honest with you, are going to be a very competitive 6-11. For the first time in my life, I have no expectations going into a season for the New York Jets. But what I will say is being at home week 1 against the Steelers, against Aaron Rodgers, you best believe that the Jets are going to come out and put their best foot forward. I truly think now this might be a very, very ugly affair. We're looking at like a 12-10, 15-10, 10-9 type of game here at MetLife Stadium next Sunday. It's not going to be pretty. I'm just letting you guys know that now. But I do think two things are sure. The Jets offense is going to be terrible outside of Garrett Wilson and the running back trio and maybe the offensive line. The Jets defense is back. The Jets defense under Aaron Glenn, I think, is going to be fantastic. I think the tackling woes are going to be gone. I think they're going to get a ton of pressure. Having Jermaine Johnson back healthy is so huge for them. Jermaine Johnson on one side, Will McDonald on the other, I think is going to be a deadly duo. The trade for Harrison Phillips makes me feel a lot better about the depth of the interior defensive line. It really does, because having Jay Tufele, and they did trade Derek Nottie, which I think is really funny, and Byron Coart as well, just really did not give me any sort of confidence whatsoever. But getting Harrison Phillips in there, getting a very solid 2-down run defender in there makes me feel a lot better. The run defense is going to be better. You watch. The Jets are going to come out week 1, and they are going to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. Maybe that's not a huge upset in terms of point spread, money line, whatever it may be. But if you look here, I am clearly in the minority of 12% picked for the New York Jets. So call me crazy. I'll live and die by the New York Jets on this one. I do think they get the week 1 victory against the Steelers and get a little bit of retribution off of Aaron Rodgers. Now we're moving on to the Commanders and the New York Giants here. And I think the Giants are going to be a lot better than people give them credit for. I think I had them at like 4-13. After seeing what the defense could be and seeing what the offense could relatively be, I mean, passing game, even with Russell Wilson, it's definitely going to be better than it was last year. Let's get that straight. It'll be better. I don't think it's going to be great. It'll certainly be better. And the defense is going to be really good. The pass rush is going to be awesome. I think the Giants are going to be better. I'm thinking maybe, as I said, a competitive 6-11 for the Jets. Maybe it's the same thing for the Giants, too. They have an ultra tough schedule. I do think they have the second toughest schedule in the NFL this year. So, maybe 4-13 could be on the cards because of just how tough that schedule is. But the Washington Commanders, coming fresh off of an unbelievable season, what a turnaround season for them, making the playoffs, making the NFC Championship game against the division rival Philadelphia Eagles and losing. I think the Commanders are going to come crashing back down to earth just a little bit. They made some really, really nice moves in the offseason to acquire Deebo Samuel, They got Laremy Tunsil as well. They drafted Jalen Lane. I couldn't think of his name there for a second. They drafted Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech, which I think is going to be a very nice wide receiver 3 for them. On the defensive side, I think Dan Quinn got the absolute most out of this unit last year. I think he's going to get the absolute most out of them again. I do think they make the playoffs. I do think they take a slight regression in terms of record. But Jaden Daniels is awesome. I think he's here to stay as one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL for quite some time. I do think this is at home. I do think they match up very well against the New York Giants. You got Bill as your new starting running back with Austin Eckler in there as well. I think this is a new look team in terms of offensive scheme wise. I think they're going to be running the football a lot better, a lot more efficient, and a lot more often. I think they're going to give this Giants team trouble in week 1. I do have the Commanders in week 1. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Carolina Panthers. And I'll be honest with you, this is kind of tough. This is a tough game. This is a typical trap game in week 1 because the Panthers are coming out fully invested in Bryce Young. Fully young in Bryce Young, too. You have Bryce Young as your starting quarterback. The offensive line is really one of the better units in the NFL, and people don't give the Carolina Panthers credit for what they have. They have Chuba Hubbard, who was awesome last year, fresh off of a new contract extension, so you know he's going to get the ball. Tet McMillan was your first-round pick this past year. Xavier Legette was the pick last year. Jatavion Sanders was the pick in the 4th round last year. Jalen Coker was an undrafted free agent who broke out in a big way last year. This is a really young, exciting offense. Defensively, I think is where they're going to struggle. I really do think they need to add pieces to the secondary, and I think that's what their downfall is going to be. On the Jacksonville Jaguars side, you have a 3-headed monster at running back. The offensive line should be okay. Trevor Lawrence needs to have that year. He's getting paid like a Pro Bowl perennial playoff winning quarterback, and he's not so far in his career. He needs to play like it now. They gave him the money. They put the team around him. You have Brian Thomas Jr., who's already a top 10 receiver in football. Bretton Strange, I think, is going to be really, really good for them. You also have Travis Hunter on the other side. You have a brilliant offensive mind in Liam Cohen as the new head coach. I think this team is going to surprise a lot of people. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars making the playoffs and winning the AFC South this year. That might be crazy, but I truly do think that the schedule and the offensive scheme could propel them there. Defensively, they're still going to be good. They have key pieces in the secondary. I really like the combination of having Tyson Campbell and Travis Hunter as your 1-2 cornerback duo. Safeties, I like quite a bit. The defensive line, I think, is going to be good. I think they're going to be all right on both sides of the ball. I got the Jacksonville Jaguars here. Then you have the Denver Broncos and the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is tough. This is a tough first game for Cam Ward to go into. Now, you want to talk about a young offense. I mean, look at, besides for Calvin Ridley, look at the offense, the transformation of the offense for the Tennessee Titans from last year to this year. Because you had Will Levis, you had DeAndre Hopkins, you had Tyler Boyd, and Calvin Ridley. You had a bunch of wide receivers in their 30s. This year, you have Calvin Ridley, who's still in his 30s but is poised for a breakout year. You have Chimere Dike. You have Tyler Lockett, who they brought in, who is in his 30s, to be fair, but I think has plenty left in the tank. You have Alec Ayomaner as well, who I think is going to be like this year's Puka Nacua. You have Chigoziem Okonkwo as your tight end 1 yet again. The backfield, Tajay Spears is going to miss at least the first 4 games, so that's a little bit of a tough blow. But you still have Tony Pollard and Kaylee Mullins as your top 2 running backs, which is nice. The offensive line, I believe, is going to be much better. You now have Dan Moore, who admittedly isn't great, in his more natural position on the left side, and you have J.C. Latham, last year's first-round pick, at his more natural position of right tackle. I liked what I saw from him last year at left tackle for the most part, but now we get to see him in his true position at right tackle, and I'm happy because he's a beast. I'm happy that they're putting him in his natural position. But this is a really, really tough first game against the Broncos, who arguably have the best defense in football, at Denver. There's a lot of expectations for the Broncos this year and Sean Payton. And I think Cam Ward is going to have those first game jitters at Mile High. against Pat Surtain, against Tanaloa Hufunga, against Jade Barron, against Riley Moss. It's going to be difficult. And I do think the Broncos, even though the Titans in their own right don't have a bad secondary, don't have a bad defense overall, I do think it's going to be very tough for them to score points. And I do have the Denver Broncos winning in week 1. Now you have the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. Again, kind of tough. A tough game to call, especially in Seattle. This is a tough one. But a healthy Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, ready to go. The offensive line, healthy. Brian Robinson Jr. is a really nice third down or change of pace back for Christian McCaffrey. Offensively, they traded Deebo Samuel away. You're looking at Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall as your top 2 receivers for quite a while. For at least the first 5 or 6 games, I'm thinking, until Brandon Ayuk comes back. Then you have George Kittle, of course. Defensively, they loaded up in the draft, especially on the defensive line. Mykel Williams, I think, is going to be awesome for them. They added CJ West. They added some really, really nice defensive pieces. I think they added Alfred Collins as well. Hook 'em horns there. Yeah, this is going to be a beastly defensive front for the San Francisco 49ers. Completely revamped. They're getting back to their best football where their front 7 was dominant. And as long as you got Fred Warner, you're all good, in my opinion. But I think their front 7 is going to be dominant this year. The Seahawks, I think, are going to take a few games to kind of get acclimated to the Sam Darnold effect. You have Cooper Kupp as well as Jackson Smith-Njigba. They have Elijah Arroyo. They have a lot of exciting rookies. The offensive line, I think, is going to be better. It's still not 100%, but adding Gray Zabel was just great versatility throughout the entire offensive line. I think this offense is going to be good with Kenneth Walker fully healthy, Zach Charbonnet as well. I think it's going to take them a couple weeks. I do think they kind of get punched in the mouth in week 1, though, with the 49ers. Are the 49ers back? They do have the easiest schedule in the NFL, so it remains to be seen. Moving on, you have the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, which could be the game of the week. Now, you have the Detroit Lions, who are going to be a little different this year. They lost Ben Johnson. They lost Aaron Glenn. They lost Tanner Engstrand as well. They lost a lot of assistant coaches. I think the offense is going to be a little different. Of course, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, who is one of the most exciting electric running backs in the NFL. They still have one of the best, if not the best, 1-2 punches in the backfield in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Jared Goff, of course, is back. Sam Laporta. Jameson Williams. You also have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Isaac Tesla has broken out in a big way. So big, in fact, that they traded Tim Patrick, who they re-signed in the offseason. They traded him because they said, we love Isaac Tesla. Defensively, I think they're going to be better. The secondary is healthy. They added DJ Reed. They added Tyleik Williams. Their defensive line is going to be absolutely awesome. A healthy Aiden Hutchinson is going to be so big for them as well. It's going to be close, especially on the Green Bay Packers side, where they added Matthew Golden, the first wide receiver they drafted since the Stone Age in the first round. They just added Micah Parsons as well. I think this team is going to be right back in the playoffs again, like last year. But I'm going to give the slight edge to the Detroit Lions because the secondary for the Packers I don't think will be able to keep up with the weapons, especially with the breakout of Isaac Tesla, that the Detroit Lions possess. Moving on, you have quite an interesting matchup here between the Los Angeles Rams and the Houston Texans. I got the Rams here. The Rams for me, are a very sneaky Super Bowl contender this year. They were a couple of defensive plays away from beating the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's not forget about that one. But the Rams against the Texans offense is going to be, the Texans offense is going to be awesome, but passing the football. So the offensive line, while, again, I've said this a couple times, while is better, Ariante Ursary, who was their first pick of the draft, they did not possess a first-round pick, but they traded up in the second round to get Ursary from Minnesota. He's going to be their left tackle of the future. He's going to be really good. I think he's going to be awesome for them. I think the offensive line is better. The weapons are awesome. don't forget, you still have Dalton Schultz, who's a very capable tight end. You have Nico Collins back, who is healthy. Jalen Noel. You have Jaden Higgins. You have Christian Kirk. You have a really, really awesome 4 wide receivers right there. The running back room is tough. Joe Mixon is going to be out for at least the first 4 games of the year. You have the corpse of Nick Chubb. You have Dameon Pierce. And then you have one of my favorite sleepers for the 2025 season. You have Woody Marks. Jo'quavious Marks from Mississippi State and USC. So the running game is going to be a little bit of a question mark. I think teams will be more than fine with rushing 4 or 5 and being able to stop the run, at least until Joe Mixon comes back. I don't know if Nick Chubb still has the legs to really churn. The Rams are just so good on the defensive front. The secondary is always kind of sort of going to be a question mark for them, but they somehow get the job done all the time. The offensive line, while suffering some injuries as the season goes on, they're very, very deep at really every single position on the offensive line. They added Devontae Adams. They have Kyron Williams. They drafted Terrence Ferguson. Puka Nacua they have. I think Jarquez Hunter and Blake Corum are going to get more involved as time goes on. And then you have Matthew Stafford, who's not really fully 100% healthy. This could be his last year. I feel like I've said this like 3 years in a row. This could be his last year in the NFL, but man, he's still a top 8 quarterback for me in the NFL. Call me crazy, but the guy could still sling it. He doesn't really put the ball in harm's way. We're looking at a future Hall of Famer here, people. Just letting you know. I do have the Rams in week 1. And then the final 2 games of the slate here, we are going to go the Sunday Night Football game, the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be, and no pun intended because it is technically the game of the week on Sunday night. This could be the game of the week. You're locking horns with 2 absolute powerhouses. This could be an AFC Championship game preview. And I feel like I say that every year, and then the Chiefs somehow slide their way in there, and I'm just so tired of it every single year, but whatever. I got the Buffalo Bills here. I think this offense is really, ever since Joe Brady took over the play calling, has just really kind of been like unbelievable. And really with not much in terms of like wide receiver firepower. I expect a big breakout season from Keon Coleman. Khalil Shakir is coming off of a extension. They added Josh Palmer. The offensive line is one of the better units in football. Josh Allen is coming off of an MVP type season. James Cook just got an extension. Ray Davis is a really, really good backup running back. This team is really good. Defensively, they added a ton on the defensive line. Don't forget Joey Bosa. They also added JT Sanders through the draft. They added a lot to the defensive line. The secondary is still good. This team is just really, really good, and that's not saying that the Ravens aren't going to be good this year. But going into Buffalo, first game of the year, it's going to be absolute pandemonium. These people, there is nothing else to do in Buffalo. The Sabres are terrible. There's nothing else to look forward to in Buffalo. The Buffalo Bulls are good, but they're not an NFL caliber. They're not an NFL team. They're a college football team, and they play in the MAC. So you're never going to get, college football playoffs over there for the most part. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent about Buffalo there. But be that as it may, I do think the Bills get it done against the Ravens. It's going to be very tough. I think this is going to be like a 35-34 type of game. Truly. And then moving on to the Monday night game here, you have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears. And, the Bears, in Ben Johnson's debut, I think it's going to be a process. I'll be quite honest with you. I don't think Caleb Williams is necessarily caught up to speed yet. I think in real game time, a lot of Ben Johnson's offense isn't going to click right away for this team. They are unbelievably loaded. They have DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland. They have DeAndre Swift. They have Kyle Monangai. They got their offensive line is completely revamped. There's no reason why this team can't win 9 games. I do think they're going to sort of kind of stumble out of the gate. And then J.J. McCarthy has some massive pressure on his shoulders at the beginning of the year. He is the guy. The Minnesota Vikings went what? What did they go? 14-3, 13-4 last year with Sam Darnold. They let Sam Darnold go to hand the keys over to J.J. McCarthy. He's got the offense for it. Granted, Jordan Addison is suspended for the first, I think, 3 games of the season. So, not what the offense could be at 100%, but you still got Jalen Nailor, who I think is going to be a really big wide receiver 3 for them this year. DJ Hawkinson is coming back fully healthy after the ACL tear. And of course, you have the best wide receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. You have one of the better offensive lines in football that only got better through the NFL draft, adding Donovan Jackson. I think this team is really poised to be really, really good on the offensive side. And as long as you have Brian Flores on the defensive side, they're always going to absolutely overachieve for the personnel that they have. But their front 7 is essentially completely revamped. So give me the Minnesota Vikings here on Monday Night Football to ruin the head coaching debut of Ben Johnson. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. There is my week 1 predictions for the 2025 NFL season. We will be doing this every week now. Granted, I do think I have the schedule here. Give me uno momento, por favor. I'm pulling up my upload schedule. I will be uploading the NFL weekly predictions every Tuesday. So that gives us basically 2 full days until Thursday Night Football. And then it gives us basically 5 days until NFL Sunday. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Let me know what your picks that you made are different. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.